Welcome to welcome to our Young Scholars webinar, and thank you for being able to join us for tonight. So tonight's webinar is very cool. We are talking about how to build confidence and start speaking up, and we have two wonderful speakers with us today. So I hope you guys continue to listen, and also for those listening on the recording, please reach out to Women Scholars as we continue to do these webinars in the future. So without further ado, let's start. I'm your host. My name is Nainika Manthena, and I am the NSHSS Ambassador Council President. And I was able to, with the help of our council members and our team, organize this webinar for all of you. So what does this webinar completely entail? The whole purpose of this webinar is to help you find your voice and also reach out to these wonderful speakers who have done so themselves to learn how you can do it yourself as a middle schooler and as a parent who may be interested to help your own student find your voice and start speaking confidently starting from a young age. So what does this mean? Well, it means that you'll be able to comfortably share your ideas. And even if this doesn't come naturally, you can start learning how to do so by being able to practice and utilize the skills that we're going to present in the webinar today. Mainly, we will talk about how you can participate in classes and activities, as well as build leadership, which is usually how you can continue growing your confidence and help finding your passion is also a big way to help you find your voice and advocate for the things that matter to you. And in today's session, we'll listen to real stories from two speakers who are a part of NSHSS and also have organizations who are partnered with us. And you can learn tools and practical strategies in order to manage your fear or in order to manage your way of finding your confidence and also build communication skills along the way. So our first speaker is Leah Mordehai. She is a NSHS student ambassador, a scholarship winner, and a Be More grant finalist.
Thank you so much for the introduction. I co-founded Slavic Voice for Ukraine, which is partnered with NSHSS. And if we could just skip to the next slide. Just to talk about what Slavic Voice for Ukraine does really quickly, we have kind of three programs. The first of which is education, where we have youth-led adaptable school programs teaching Ukraine's history, culture, and current challenges through to K through 12 students across the country. We provide interactive lessons, multimedia resources, that kind of builds awareness about a people and a culture that's currently being oppressed. And we are based in 16 US states and 7 countries. And I can talk a little bit about why, kind of the backstory behind Slavic Voice for Ukraine. So my family kind of originates from Ukraine and has a long history of facing the Russian oppression, similar to what is being felt by the people of Ukraine today. And so it was kind of that personal history and family that really motivated me to start this organization. And so I would encourage any young scholars to similarly think like what issues are important to them and to their family, and to use that as like an initial drive and motivation to start an organization. Whether it's about, it doesn't need to be something culturally related, just kind of looking for that issue in your life that's meaningful to you. So we can jump to the next slide. So a big part of what we do is advocacy. I'm someone who's personally interested as kind of an academic subject, history and political science. And so that's why we have an advocacy branch. Kind of it stemmed from my interest in that. And so when you're founding your own organization, like think about what subjects do you like at school? Would you want to do something STEM based, something kind of social justice based? So with the advocacy branch of Slavic Voice for Ukraine, we do first action through education, right? The idea behind the education campaign that I talked about in the previous slide is to kind of educate the future leaders of the world about Ukraine. So when they get into the White House, Capitol Hill, like they are educated on this very important issue. Second is to advocate to our elected officials about the priorities and what's important for Ukraine right now. Just to, continue to remind our elected officials that it's an issue that's important to Ukrainians living in America, but also to Americans. I was born right in the United States, so to just kind of reinforce that point. Another part of our advocacy is passing legislation itself. For example, as part of the San Francisco Youth Commission, I have co-authored a resolution that makes February 24th, which is the day that the war in Ukraine became a full-scale invasion in 2022. And so I created a resolution that will soon be part of the city charter that day is the official day of solidarity with Ukraine, and I'm attempting to replicate that in California and several other states. Um, and so advocacy can kind of take multiple facets. It can be education, awareness, it can be talking to elected officials, it can be trying to write the legislation yourself. And so I think there's a lot of different avenues that you can take if advocacy is something that you want to incorporate within an organization that you're trying to start as a middle schooler. We can go to the next slide. Um, again, going back to this idea of thinking about what your passions are and what you like doing. I'm someone who's always loved writing. I've enjoyed journalism. My parents always have the news playing in the background, and so it's just something that's been very prevalent in my life. And I like have seen the transformative power that accurate, informed reporting has. And so part of our newspaper is or part of Slavic Voice for Ukraine is we have a newspaper. It's less so a traditional newspaper that has like investigative pieces and this column and that column. It's more just supposed to be an outlet for youth to express their feelings. Like we have youth from Ukraine who are writing for us, who are actively documenting, how they feel about the conflict, how just, writing about their culture and their traditions. Um, it's also a way that we engage youth from the United States, right? We tell them, pick a topic, like research it, get really into it, and produce something from that, and then get published. And we also, accept all mediums like arts, poetry, like it's meant to just be an outlet of reflection and a show of solidarity for Ukraine. Um, and also, I will say, if you're looking to start a passion project, I think doing a newspaper is like one of the easiest things that you can do. It's, you can make a blog on Wix. That's how we started. Like the beginning of Slavic Voice Ukraine was just a newspaper. This was like the one thing that we did. We just kept getting people to write for us to get interested in the issue. And so I'd say that's a great starting point. Just if you're passionate about something, trying to write about it online, is a great way to get started. Um, so in terms of what helped me overcome fear and self-doubt, I would say for a long time, like I've been doing advocacy work for Ukraine for a long time, probably since 2022 when the full-scale invasion broke out. But truly I was scared of kind of trying to form some type of big organization or coalition because I just thought I couldn't do it. Like, there are CEOs and like adults who are kind of, maybe failing or struggling to run their businesses. And I thought, as a 14-year-old, how can I do this? But I think the thing I learned from this experience is you just have to do it. Like, you just have to start somewhere, start small. As I said, we just started with like a Wix blog, which has, it's not what we are today, but just when you get started, like things start happening, you meet people, you get partnerships, people get interested. And so I would say, like, just kind of walk in with the fear, acknowledge it, and walk in, like, knowing that this might be scary, you might fail, but you have to take that risk if you want something really great to come out of it. Um, in terms of how I became comfortable at presenting and advocating, I would say I've been doing debate since sixth grade, and I think that really drove my public speaking abilities. Um, but still, that doesn't go to say that, sometimes when I'm speaking, my cheeks get red and, I stumble and I laugh and, it happens to everyone. So I think my advice would be to get involved in things that have public speaking, like debate, model United Nations. Like starting those things early on really does help build that skill set, and that skill set will serve you whether you're trying to start your own organization, whether you're trying to go into business, even if you're trying to go into STEM, like having that proficiency and being able to um accurately communicate is one of the most valuable skills that you can have beyond just like debate and model United Nations. I think um, just try and get into leadership positions, whether it's just starting a club at your school or things like that. Like as a leader, I think you will naturally learn, how to deal with the fear of speaking publicly. And the more you practice, like the more comfortable you'll get with it. So that's my story and the story of Solving Voice for Ukraine.
Great. Thank you so much, Leah. If anyone has any questions at all for Leah to answer about her organization, about her activities, her experiences, please drop them in the chat. So yeah, let's see. I do have a question. So like, how did you calm your fears before presenting or speaking in front of others?
I think something that really helps me is physical exercise. And maybe this is not like immediately before, but like knowing that I have to speak somewhere, like I'll go on a run like an hour before, 30 minutes before, just to like get all that nervous energy out in a productive way. And I think that really helps me deal with it. Beyond that, I think even like minimal physical activity, like sometimes before I go on stage or to speak up, like just jump up and down a little bit. Um, that was literally happening at the NSHSS Be More Grant finalist presentation. I was like jumping up and down, and everyone was looking at me like I was crazy. But yeah, I would say physical exercise helps. I think finding something to focus on, whether it's positive affirmations, if you have like a stress toy that you want to play with to just get that energy out somehow, I think that's what really helps me before big presentations.
Nice. That's so cool to hear. How did you go from like having your idea with Solid Voices and like your newspaper to actually creating that into a project and kind of making it more large scale from like a newspaper to a non or organization?
Yeah, I think the transition really started as the newspaper began to grow. Like we had like our contributors kind of came to us and we were in contact with them and they were like, what else can we do? Like what more can we do beyond just writing? And so I sat down with my co-founder and we thought about it and we thought like I think like combining our passions for education, writing, and advocacy. I felt like the next logical step was an education campaign. We talked, to our board members. We have a board members where every kind of region or state is represented through a regional director. Like, what do you think your community needs in terms of like learning about Ukraine and educating them about the war? And so we came up with like a couple of multimedia ways to really engage youth, right? One through an education campaign. Obviously, the newspaper was already there. We have a podcast where we interview like high level officials. We've talked to the Ukraine's youth delegates to United Nations on the podcast. We're talking to some like experts in their field, Stanford professors. We've talked to soldiers who have been in the ground in Ukraine for years. And so, really just thinking about a multimedia approach to get youth involved and educated, just kind of naturally, these kind of divisions and functions of an organization begin to form.
That's really cool. Apart from, I guess, like the students and the co-founders or your co-founder, was there any like mentors, teachers who also helped you along the way and helped you like grow that confidence?
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of mentorship, we have as listed on our website, we have a couple of really key partners that help us do a lot of our work. NSHSS, of course, is a big one. They've given us a really big platform to spread our voice. Um, we're partnered with SUSTA, which is the Ukrainian Student Federation, more aimed at college students, but we're working with them extremely closely. And the president of their alumni board has been a big mentor. As well as just a couple other organizations. The Peace Through Strength Institute has worked with us. We had some like mentor. One of our regional directors from New York was published in the Jewish telegraphic agency, and one of their editors was like a really big mentor for her in terms of her writing and just getting published in the world of news. And so I think with the organization, all these partners help us out in a lot of different ways.
That's really cool. And I guess going back to like young scholars and middle schoolers, what is like one piece of advice you would give your middle school self, and what would it be? How would you go about it?
Yeah, I think one advice I would give my middle school self is to just go for it. I think like I had the idea for a long time. I think I sat on it for a lot longer than I should have. And I think when you have an idea and you think it's a good one, don't let people tell you that it's not. I think you just need to acknowledge that there's fear and you need to kind of go for it. And with time, like that fear will subside.
Great. Thank you so much. Those were some of the questions that we had, but if anyone else has any questions, please drop them now. Um, as Leah does have to go in some time. But thank you so much for joining us for our webinar today, Leah, and I hope you had a great time and thank you for speaking. Yeah, cool. So now we can transition into our next speaker, who is Nahid Karimi, and she is an NSHSS ambassador with us.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nainika. It's a pleasure to be with you guys. And just a little bit about myself, I can say that I'm an NSHSS ambassador, and I'm the co-founder of Empower Her, which is a partner with NSHSS. I was born and raised in Kabul, Afghanistan, and then I became refugees in Pakistan when the Taliban took over of Afghanistan. I've been advocating for Afghans around the world, or especially Afghan women in Afghanistan who are living under the oppression right now, by co-founding Empower Her and giving them opportunities to raise up their voices by writing, by giving them workshops or many other choices that they can use to develop their skills and to just, yeah, speak up for themselves. So yeah, as I said, I was in Kabul, Afghanistan when Ta Taliban took over. When I was in Afghanistan, I was like in many other things rather than just being a student. I was also in a singing group, which was a saw group. We would like publicly sing in many TV shows. We would sing for advocacy, for peace, and as you guys might know, the war that's been going on in Afghanistan had been there for a long time. So we were advocating for more peaceful transition of power and just like for women's rights and many other things at the same time. I was also a national gymnast, and I was like all the time, I was building this idea of being a special self or a unique self that's like different from other people, and also just finding my own way in the world. So, yeah, we can go to the next slide. So, I came to the United States when I was in Pakistan. I got a full scholarship to my school. I came to the United States around 2024, and right now I'm a junior in Solbury School in Pennsylvania. And beside taking my classes at Solbury, uh, I also participate in Model UN classes and like Service Society Club and being president and many other things and trying to contribute to my community as much as I can. Besides that, when I came to America, I started a small English class because I really wanted to help Afghan women to not be able to live at the situation that I was in when I was in Pakistan or in Afghanistan, where nobody was helping me to learn any languages. Nobody was opening the doors of skills to me because everything was just focused on the war and what's been going on, that everybody had forgotten what was going on to the women of Afghanistan. So I started this small English class so that I could help at least 20 women and girls. They were mothers, they were educators, there were many from many other ages that were trying to learn English. And the same thing that we all shared was just like helping each other out. And that's how I came to empower her too, around 20, I think after I finished my English class after 3 months or something, I started Empower Her with my co-founder Mahdi Rahimi, who both of us had initiatives before Empower Her, but we started Empower Her as this idea to contribute more than what we already had. So in Empower Her, we have two types of programs currently. We have mentorship programs and Her Voice program. Mentorship program is just like a bunch of workshops that give Afghan women the skills and the education that they are missing right now. These are workshops that are like very, um, like their time base is very small. They're only for 1 month, but they are allowing women to learn different skills and find their passion and pursue their skills even in the times of darkness when Taliban are taking over. And we also have a Her Voice program, which might sound similar to what Leah said, but Her Voice program, we offer community members and Afghan women to be published on different website and on different organizations such as NSHSS or Amplify Afghan Women that are partners with us, and we provide them with 4 to 5 writings each month, and they get published. And that's the way we're providing an opportunity for Afghan women to be able to write history from their own perspective and just to be able to speak up. Next slide, please. And now we can go to what you can do and where you can start from. I know when I was in middle school, well, my experience might be very different from you because I was in Afghanistan in middle school, can be very different. But I think in that age, I think what we all share is the age of being very like scared of trying something new or just being someone else because we're just all growing up and creating our own like this character that we're trying to make. So I would say that your voice matters and leadership can start very young. Like you can just be a leader in your class. You can start helping your peers with their homework if they have any trouble doing their homework, or you can speak up for your family, for your sister, for anybody else in your community that you think that you can help them if you have the skills and if you have the courage to. I think courage is a very important word, and it might not come from within all the times, but I think there is some courage in every one of us to just stand up for something that you think that it's not right and you think that you can bring change to it. And I think all the time there can be challenges, and I think challenges make you grow. For example, if you're not taking classes that you really like right now, you're challenging yourself to create this new perspective of learning new things, trying new things, and if you don't challenge yourself, you don't grow. You have to be challenged. You have to do something wrong to be able to know what it would be if you could make it right. You know what I mean? So, also, your identity is something to be proud of. I think everyone, especially in America, there can be very different identities that people share with their family from their background, and they can be very different from all the other people that you see in school or in your community. But what you should know is that your identity matters for you and for people who are around you, and that you should never be scared of sharing knowledge about your background and sharing knowledge about where you came from and what your background is, because I think that's what people need to know more in every place in the world and to know more about what's happening and how it's impacting people and generations. Next slide, please. So, yeah, that's all I have. If you have any questions, feel free to just ask me.
Yeah, if you guys have any questions, please drop them in the chat. So I have some questions. Let's see. What do you remember any like moment or story when you saw yourself kind of change and kind of like start speaking up from when you were like scared, but then you started advocating more? Was there any story, something like that?
I think so too. I think when I started advocacy from just like being scared was when I was singing. I think going onto the stage and sing in front of millions of people or like thousands of people all the time or TV shows, every time I would go on stage, I would be very scared. I would be like, what if I do something wrong? What if I say something wrong? Like some of them would be live. So I would be like, what if I tremble and I can't talk? All of these like thoughts come in your head, but I think what made me keep going and what made me just try it is to just like believing in myself and knowing that people who are around me, they're just there to help me and they're just there to just see me improve and watch me become a better version of myself rather than just making fun of me or I saw it like as a learning opportunity rather than just being scared. I'm scared right now too all the time. Like when I speak, it can be very hard when you see like real people in front of you. But I think what you can do is just to remind yourself that you are more than what you think you are, and that people around you always are always there to help you. I think that's what I would do. Yeah.
That's a great message, and I love that. Let's like when you were having these fears, was there anything that you did to calm yourself down? Kind of like the similar question I asked Leah. How did you do that?
Well, I think how I calmed myself down was just to sit down somewhere and I would think about like why am I doing this thing? Like at the moment, like why is it important to me and why am I feeling scared at the moment? If it was something big, I would be telling myself that this is something big. This makes me feel fear and scared. And I would tell myself, how can I deal with this? And I'll be like, I'm doing this because this is important to me in these terms. And if I don't do this, this is what's going to be the outcome. So I would make pros and cons for myself. And I'd be like, so the pros for this is more than the cons. So I should really be doing this. And even if I'm scared, I'd be doing this for the greater good or for something that I really like. And I would be really learning from this experience. So that's how I did it. Like I would sit down with my thoughts basically.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Yeah. That's really cool. I think that's a great way. That's also kind of how I calm myself down too. Let's see. This is kind of like just a final question. So like what is the message that you hope this middle schoolers and the students attending the program really take away from your talk, your organization and all of that?
I think what they can take away from my organization, my journey would be to just start your own journey and just start creating a new thing. Something that nobody else has done it, something that can be small, something that can be scary, but it can be new, it can be unique like each one of us. And it can be only your own path because I believe even these small children, the middle schoolers, all of them have these ideas in their heads that they are scared to get, like, to do something with it or to have an outcome with it. And they should just start that journey. They should put the first step, even if it's asking their teacher for something, even if it's asking another organization to partner with them. It can be anything, but just start it and you'll be shocked about where you would go with it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that message. It's really inspiring, and also everyone just like exactly put yourself out there, and that's the biggest way. Thank you, Nahid, for speaking at our webinar, and I hope that anyone who's watching, you could reach out to any of our speakers through the emails or through just reaching out on the NSHSS website. So as a final wrap up of our webinar today, just like a small reminder of some of the things that you can do, which is like start these programs or even participate in the organizations that you heard today. Just getting your foot in the door is one of the biggest ways to you can start growing as a leader and start becoming confident. And like our speakers mentioned, some of the ways to be able to calm your nerves is, and to have those like daily confidence habits is really like special to you. Whether it's exercising or just breathing, talk like staying with your thoughts, calming down, whatever it is, you'll find that, and that'll really help with being able to build your confidence. And I hope anyone who's watching is able to learn that from our webinar today. And thank you so much again for our speakers. And I hope you have a wonderful night. Let's see. Okay, and if any of you have any feedback or any questions, we would love to hear your response through this QR code if you could scan it. We definitely take your thoughts into consideration for future webinar ideas or for any feedback or recommendations. So please do not be afraid of scanning and letting us know your thoughts. But without further ado, that is the end of our webinar. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.